Good morning and welcome to Coffee Time with Kauffman, the comfortable place to talk about women's leadership. I am Maria Kauffman, and today Audree Grubesic is our guest on the show. Hey,
Hello,
Audree.
hello. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to have some coffee with you.
Nice to have you. Audree Grubesic is the founder and CEO of Modular SureSite, an offsite construction consulting company offering services for residential and commercial projects. She has firsthand experience in construction and project management. Over the past 20 plus years, she has excelled in marketing, sales, new business development, and home building. And we are talking about blending personal with professional. But before I get into that, today I am drinking some Tanzania honey coffee from the Moshi district of Kilimanjaro. Audrey, what are you drinking?
Oh, yum. Usually I am on coffee, but today is a soft tea day. I know I'm breaking the rules and I'm doing this new thing. I'm actually putting collagen protein in my tea to help with my body. So cheers.
Cheers. That's so interesting. Is this a New Year's thing?
This is a new year, new you kind of thing. I'm trying to, bring a little health into my life.
Well, awesome. And we welcome everyone, whether you like coffee or not. This is always the comfortable place to talk. So it is so easy to talk to you, Audrey, and we take some awesome tangents on women's leadership, but we'll get the conversation kicked off with, as we blend the professional with the personal, what are some of your earliest memories on the topic?
It's funny because you and I were talking about this just recently. And when I went to work, when I started in my 20s, it was kind of like, shamed or frowned upon talking about your family or bringing your family to work or having, if you have no daycare, you don't bring your child to work. You just don't do that, right? So it has evolved so much. And, my experience, even when I would go to business dinners or do things like that, it was very rare that I would even have my partner with me, my husband. So I feel like we've come a long way. I feel it's changed. How has it been for you? Have you kind of seen that same thing?
Yeah. I mean, 30 years ago, very, very, I want to say cold. I want
Yeah.
to say black and white. There was a very fine division. My earliest memories were just kind of really understanding and learning what it means to be professional. And just like you said, it was like being professional kind of means you're leaving, the family at home.
Right. And leaving who you are and your attachment to what is important to you. And in my role, and even through my life, throughout my whole career, my family's been my number one priority, my number one support team, my number one in everything. And so it's really interesting that today I feel it's so much different. I feel like we are blending a lot more, and it's becoming who we are and having those conversations and knowing we're real people with real feelings and real connections.
Yeah. Any memories of moments during the transition time, in the past and now, anything that stands out for you that you remember?
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember, I mean, everybody possibly does. On September 11th, I was working for a direct response company, and it was early in the morning. We were all watching the news. Things were happening. When that first plane went into the first building in New York, it was complete devastation. Just such fear came over me. And I remember my boss, we were all like, what are we doing? We need to, like, I had a small son that was like 3 years old at the time. And I remember talking to him, and he was like, no, you're staying here. This is what we do. We work. And just very disconnected. And I was in my 20s because I had my son when I was 24. So I was 27. I literally got up and left. I left my job. I was like, there's nothing in this world. At that time, I've never experienced anything like that with that fear,
Yes,
right?
right.
And I was like, I just got to get to my family. Because who knows what's going to happen in the world. It was complete panic. And it was the first time I empowered myself to say, no, you don't get to tell me that. I'm leaving. And it was so profound for me. And I remember that very specific day, just because there was so much sadness and hurt, and we've lost so many people, but just knowing how important it was for me to be connected and have my son and be with my husband and be there together. And a lot of families didn't get to do that. And so my heart goes out to them, but I also think it changed our nation as a whole to realize how important our connections are.
Wow, that's pretty intense, pretty strong memory.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think looking back, uh, there's almost like waves in an ocean. Things kind of go in and out. So there are strong points in time where they push the issue the other way. I do remember taking my daughter when she was in elementary school to work.
Oh, wow.
And right. So, and I guess at the moment it didn't necessarily dawn on me to reflect back on the times when that was not even a thing.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But then later in life, it does kind of come full circle where there's some gratitude, that I got to do that. My parents, certainly that was not even a thing back in the day.
Yeah. And a good thing for your daughter too, because she got to see what you do. She got to understand the connection. She got to listen to conversations. She got to see, it's funny, my daughter is helping me with social media. Just recently, she's in college, and they're like a whiz at it, right? Yeah. And it was funny because just this week we were going through our social media camera, putting things together. She's so fast and she's so quick, and she's like, "Here, Mom, just let me take your phone. Let me put this." I mean, I sat there and I talked to my husband that night when we were having dinner, and I was like, "Man, she's so good at this." Right. And she was like, "Mom, I can't believe how hard you work. Like, I can't believe all the things you're doing and how you're balancing it all." And I was like, "Thank you for noticing." It was it was such a good feeling this week. There were so many things that have happened. And so I feel grateful. And I think it would have been cool if I would have been able to do that when she was younger, but I'm certainly happy that now I get to experience it with her as an adult.
Yeah, she gets to come around to it on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I also remember, I don't know about you, but as I was parenting, certainly being a mom for the first time and getting back to work and actually being pregnant, as I was reflecting, some of the most magical moments, I remember being pregnant and not being as productive, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But there was something going on, I think, that put me in a whole nother space. I remember offering a suggestion for an improvement that was pretty, I'll say it was impressive at the time. It was a major improvement to the process. And I'm telling you, if I wasn't pregnant and in that space, I wouldn't have had that bandwidth to be able to bring that insight, to the job and to whatever was going on at the time.
That's cool. I
So
mean,
I think,
how special is that to know that you've opened that? I think I think women in the workplace now are so much smarter, so much more well connected. I feel like we have really changed and evolved ourselves and gave permission to ourselves to be like, look what we can do. Look what we can create, and we can give ourselves a voice to take action. So for you in that time and to be able to do that, Maria, is amazing.
yeah. And so I guess, I'm kind of looking to you too to get some feedback on when we blend the professional with the personal. It's interesting to see which way it goes. And
Sure.
there's sides on both sides.
And I feel like when I look at blending my professional and my personal, I'm a happier person. And if I'm a happier person, I am more productive. I don't feel as stressed. I feel like I can be a little bit more creative. It's my career has transferred from TV and now into construction, two completely different industries, but serving the same purpose, right? We're still serving people. We're still creating. And I remember in my 20s, I felt like it was frowned upon. It's interesting because most of the women in TV, when I was there and I started in my 20s, most of them were getting pregnant at 40.
Wow. Wow.
Actually, the majority of
Wait.
them were, because I remember being the youngest girl. I was 24 and having a baby, and there was 3 other women in TV that were in their 40s having their first baby.
Wow.
So imagine, like I look at it now and I think there's a lot of older women having children, and God bless them. Like either way, I have no judgment, but I don't think I could do a baby at 40 because I don't know. It just seems like it's so, having children, just in my my opinion, my perspective, it's so much work. It's so much work to just, and the balance of work and life between both, it is a very big balance. There's a lot of stress on both sides because as women, we're trying to create our career, have our placement. But as moms, we're also trying to make that connection and support our children and do things to make their lives grow. So there's this huge juggling act. And my son was in baseball since he was 4. And then my daughter was a fencer at 5. So we were in constant sports. So now, we were balancing all those schedules along with work.
Right. So help me understand that whenever you say that are you saying that the blending of the professional and personal makes you happier?
It does. I feel like it does because for me, I feel like I'm succeeding in both.
Mm.
Right.
Ah.
And
When you can blend.
when you can blend, when you can be like, I have this amount of time for work and I certainly have this amount of time for my children and my family. And the children and my family are the number one priority. So if I feel like I can give to both, and then somewhere I just realized just recently, now being 50, now it's okay too for me to have my time.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known that then because I was
Oh,
so focused on those 2 parts of my life, I actually forgot about myself,
right.
right?
Well, it's hard.
It
I
is
mean, there's only so much time in a day, right?
hard. Yep. Mhm.
So for me, I think some of the things, and there's so little, right? So in a lot of the work that I would do as an engineer, it's very complicated,
Yeah.
mental work, and my mind does not shut off whenever, the end of the day time comes to pass.
True.
Right. So
Mhm.
I always gave myself the grace that, if I'm driving home and I'm not on the clock anymore, but I'm still thinking about work, some of my most brilliant answers came during that time. Then for me, it must be okay to take a moment and make a doctor's phone call while I'm at work.
True. That's so smart. And you had so much wisdom to understand that at that time. Uh,
Yeah. Because it wasn't coming from the outside.
no, and when I remember, being in my 20s for 11 years being in TV, that you are in constant chaos of gathering news, gathering relationships, putting tapes together, it was a constant. And I remember being like that too, like that night driving home.
Yeah.
And I would work 2:30 to 10:30, or I would work 4 hours. I would sleep 4 hours and then go in from 4 a.m. to 2 p.m. Or two. It was. I don't think I ever gave myself enough downtime.
Yeah.
Maria. And I look at that now, and I think balance is a big deal. And so I think you're right. I think it's smart when you're like, I can balance it, and because I'm still working, I can do this. So you
Yeah.
are totally ahead of the game, girl.
Well, in some ways, but at the same I too fell into that rut where I was either a mom or a worker,
Yeah.
and even even on the weekends, I felt like doing the household work and just doing
I
the
know, it's
laundry.
never
Like
ending, right?
that's not my time.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of women that are, they have people that help clean their homes and help them because it's one more thing that they can at least alleviate, and they can give themselves back a little bit of time for themselves.
Yeah. Only in my later wisdom, I will say. Yeah, and I'm 52, so it's only
Yeah.
now that I really prioritize that. I'm going to take a spa day, and I'm going to go get
Yes.
a massage just for me.
I agree. I'm always like, when can I go outside and go for a walk? That's always been like my resource of just, and recently, I think we were talking like 5 years ago, I started meditating every morning and night.
Yeah.
And that was a big Big deal. That certainly helped me with my focus. It helped me with having my own time. There was a lot of principles. And the great thing is, spirituality or whatever you want to call it, there's just a time for peace.
I love it. I love the peace practice. So
Mhm.
morning and night, that
Mhm.
is awesome.
Yes.
Tell us what it does for you?
It makes my connection back to who I am. I feel like first, I feel like it starts my day the right way. I feel like I start the day with a positive feeling. I feel like I lead from my heart when I do that.
Yeah.
And whenever I can lead from my heart, I attract the right openings, the right people come in. It's just prolifically changed my life. And you hear about this, right? And you say, gosh, how is that even possible? But when you're in that practice, it's like practicing yoga, or if you're a marathon runner, having some daily focus, having some daily something, I believe allows you to one, connect with who you are, and that connection will lead your day. And so it's all on making yourself the priority. That's what I feel. And I think
Mm.
that was one of the things that was missing from my life, because I'm such a giver and I want to see others succeed, and I want to support my family, and I want to support my coworkers, and I do a lot of charity work. There's just enormous amount of take. And so it's the time in the morning that I can give myself.
Lovely, and thank you for sharing that because it is so important, but it's hard to squeeze the time in. What can you tell us about the difference between your morning time and your evening time meditations?
I'm definitely a morning person. There's times where I will get up at 3 in the morning and meditate till 5. My evenings, I am, it all depends on my balance at the time. Everything ebbs and flows for me.
Mm.
Right now, I'm working on 10 developments. I'm also running my media company. I'm also trying to get things going. So by the end of the evening, it's more about grace and gratitude. It's
Oh,
more about being thankful for my life, thankful for my connections, my people, having a healthy body, simple things, not making it complicated.
right.
So that's the difference. And in the morning, it's more about, starting my day, having some positive affirmations, bringing, bringing what I can offer to the best of my ability. So it's kind of like the opening. And then at the end of the day, it's kind of my closing.
And it's a nice sustainable rejuvenator because I
It is.
imagine going to bed that must give such release to the day in a way that allows you to sleep in a more productive way.
I agree. It has been the single most life-changing thing for me that I have done over the last 5 years. And
Ah,
I can tell you just, and it's changed my life so much that my family sees it.
ooh, what do they see?
Most of, it's interesting because my husband is a baseball coach, so he's very male driven, very masculine. And he sees a softer side to me because, in my practice or my position, being in construction, I'm around a lot of men. It's very rare that I meet
Mm,
women.
yeah.
I'll meet women that are interior designers, like even you being an engineer, women in engineering or architecture. It's just not as common. It's becoming more common, which makes me happy. But
Yeah.
yeah, but so I've always run from that masculine. I've always been around the masculine. And I feel like meditation, I feel like my practice has softened me. I feel like I am trying to bring in my feminine power. I don't feel like I have to push. And I certainly don't feel like I have to prove myself anymore.
Oh, I love it. You don't have to push and you don't have to prove yourself anymore. So I've been practicing meditation for about 10 years. And I
Mhm.
would say it took me a long time. And reflecting back, I think it just kind of helps me understand I really needed a lot to heal from
Yeah.
and learn from. So it definitely helped me learn about myself. In the end, that's all that that was the most important first step. was to get in there and say, who am I really and what's going on here that, maybe I'm not seeing the happiness in my life that I want. And maybe I'm not seeing the success in my life that I don't want. And I didn't realize that meditation was actually helping me heal and inform this new transformation and a new path. But now when I sit down to meditate, and maybe because it's been such a practice over a long period of time, I am able to tap into information now. It's a quicker heal and a quicker information on where do I go next.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree with you. And when we talk about meditation, right, or just a practice, maybe meditation means walking, or maybe meditation means being outside. Meditation doesn't mean it has to be a sit down practice. It's a start. And I think you could be in the car driving home and breathe for 2 minutes, and that's meditation. Anytime you can take a breath, anytime you can stop and breathe is meditation. Because I try, it's funny because I have 3 older sisters, and they've seen this transformation as well. And interesting enough, I talk about healing all the time. I'm healing myself. I'm healing my heart. I'm healing the things that my traumas, the things that I have been going through. And it's not easy, right? We both know it's hard to reflect and look at ourselves as imperfect beings, but we are. And that's the great part about being human. And they're always like, how do you do it? I can't sit there. My brain goes crazy. It's so hard. And I'm like, you just have to sit and just breathe for 2 minutes to start there. And then it starts evolving. And I think the other great thing, Maria, is there's so many great tools out there now. You have Insight Timer, which is an app. I think I started with Headspace first, which is doing phenomenal. Insight Timer, I think, yesterday when I was looking on, there's 19 million people meditating at the same time I was. Like, there's so many cool things that you're seeing. And then I also feel like there's a certain connection. Like, even when you and I met, I was like, wow, I just want to be around her. She just has this charisma. There's just this light. There's just this something. And it's funny. I believe that practice like that, really, you start realizing or seeing it or reflecting it in others.
Yeah. So tell me then, what is it like to be in construction?
It's interesting because I'm not only in construction, but I'm in this form of construction that people are just discovering. Offsite construction has been around for 100 years. Like, Sears came out with these kit homes, right? You had these pieces and people could buy them and it would ship to their place and they would build them. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. That's what's transitioning. It's only about, I want to say, 5% of the industry, but we're quickly moving into this space because we don't have as many trades. We don't have as many general contractors. We don't have as many builders. And we have a lack of materials and supply. And so we're evolving how we build. And so offsite construction, modular construction, that's kind of where I'm at, is kind of like a Lego. That's kind of how I explain it. It is a house or a building that is actually built inside a factory. So you have your walls, you have your roof, you have the flooring, you have your cabinets. The entire house is finished in the factory, made into small little boxes or Legos. They're transported to the site and they're assembled within a day to build your home.
Wow.
So it's been very interesting. Again, I'm kind of in the forefront of having these conversations. There's other forms of offsite. There's panelization, where you create just panels of a house or a building that helps you assist creating the product, as you know, quicker. There are container homes. There's ICFs, insulated concrete forms, or forms that help you build your foundation. So what's happening in the industry that I'm seeing is this transformation of solutions for creating buildings. And a lot of the buildings are getting created in factories, and then they're being brought to the site and assembled we just don't have enough trades. It's also very sustainable. So we're using less materials. We don't have as much waste. The products are green. And we will constantly have engineers. We're going to constantly have architects. We're not eliminating positions. We're just getting smarter about how we build things.
Right. Help us understand why it's so important to have women involved
I
in
think
every aspect.
you and I were talking about it today. The one interesting dynamic of what women bring from what men offer and what women offer. Women have this constant connection to community. We are always community in our family, in our friends, in our work. And there's a different forefront of how women design communities or build than there are when men. It's funny because I had this amazing conversation with this couple, and they are going to be building 25,000 homes in Colorado. And her whole presence was about what the houses are going to look like. Are they going to have a sustainable community? Are they going to be bringing food to table? Or, she had a whole dynamic of how it was going to
Bigger.
stimulate connecting people. Then I had another conversation with my colleagues about building a factory, and they were about how cool can they make it? How sustainable can they make it? How technical can it be? And they were so excited about it. And so I'd love to see more women. I think I get excited when there are women on my calls. I really do try to direct a lot of my energy to them because I want to empower them. I feel that women bring a tool and an asset of, we're so dynamic with processes. We're so dynamic with creating things and also solution based.
I love it. I love dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamic and solution based.
Mm-hmm.
And that just highlights this perspective that women bring. It's new and different. And
Yeah,
I think it's essential moving forward. Things are getting harder. There's only so far and so fast you can get with a limited mindset,
absolutely.
right? And
Yeah.
and fast until you start introducing some of these other perspectives that naturally women are going to bring just by being there.
Absolutely, and just their different energy, just their different way that they evolve. Women are, because we're usually moms, or we're taking care of, we're caregivers, or we're taking care of our parents. We just have this innate ability to feel and connect. And I'm not saying men don't do that, because of course they do. I mean,
Yes.
they do as well. I just feel like women do it differently.
Just different,
Just
right? It's different, and then it just makes it richer, more colorful, all around, and then
Yeah,
it
I
kind of
love
makes it.
inclusivity, right? And I love when there are other races. I like when there are other different cultures that I'm able to bring to the table. It just, there's always different perspective, and
Yeah,
perspective is good. Perspective is what allows us to grow and to build better.
yeah. Yeah, so, has there been parts of your professional life specifically that have made you better at home or vice versa?
I like, we were getting back to it. I think my spiritual practice, my
Ah,
meditation has actually enhanced and helped my business life. I
yeah.
feel that I listen more, and
Ah,
I feel that has changed the way I don't feel as frantic. I feel like I have a better focus. It's interesting because I do a lot of project management on a lot of these builds. I do a lot of pre-construction work, which means that I work with structural engineers, I work with civil engineers, geotechs, I work with architects. I'm building an entire team. And so I'm kind of like the quarterback, right? And being able to use my words wisely, and able to get to bringing the conversation back to a focus, realizing these are our deadlines, these are the things that we're trying to achieve. That practice has helped me in my work life to my regular life. I also realize in my work life, working with so many different individuals and working with a team atmosphere, it allows me to then, when I talk to my family, or if they're going through something, to break it down,
ooh,
what we see, break down how we're feeling, acknowledge the pieces. And also, the best part about it is I don't have to figure it out for them. Everybody has to lead for themselves and allow them space to understand that, and allow them to do what they have to do. Where before I felt like I had to be the problem solver for them.
that is so interesting. So interesting because a lot of times even in relationships, you know, traditionally, right? So the men are the professionals, but they are stereotyped into bringing a problem solving mindset into the relationship. So they always wanted to solve the problem, which you're upside down on that. You're like, oh my gosh, my profession helped me come to my family and not feel like I need to be the problem solver.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think I think that comes with age. I do.
Yep.
I feel like, in my 20s, raising my children as babies, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't make a mistake. And I put so much pressure on myself because I thought that was how I was supposed to do it. And now I'm like, I'm backing off and I'm like, they got to do it, right?
Yeah.
We all gotta go through our journey. We all got to figure out, if you're willing, if you're willing to look at it, if you're willing to reflect, just kind of like the healing thing, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
If you're willing to give yourself space and know that maybe you don't have all the answers, but trust that they'll come,
Right.
it just changes the conversation and not pushing. Again,
Okay.
I was running by like such high, it was just such a different way of working. I felt like I needed to work like a man. And that's
Yes.
how I felt
Oh
in my,
yeah.
right?
That's how I started too. Like how
Couldn't have
else are
any
you going to
feelings.
learn?
Yeah, I couldn't have any feelings. This is the process. This is how you do it. You don't get sick. You come to work. Like, there's so much demand. And now I feel I'm happier that I'm not like that. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
happier. I feel more sustained. I feel more confident in who I am because I'm not going to run like that. I'm not going to work like that.
More empowered.
More empowered.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I can't help but imagine, because I know too what it was like for me, also growing in maturity, getting to a different space, and then being in the work environment. Like so many things change. One, for example, is just my ability to respond to the normal day to day, right? And there might be little offenses, that maybe back in the day, be like, oh, that was so offensive, like,
Right.
you wouldn't talk to a
Right.
girl like that. And, as I was exiting my engineering career, I just took everything as an invitation to relate and connect.
That's
And if
beautiful. That's huge. That's a
it,
big deal. That's hard to do.
oh, and I felt like that was part of my journey, was I almost needed to take my engineering career to that level so that I can then start this other career and help bring that back into the community.
Right.
Then, hey, listen, we don't have to get offended if somebody, if we get playful. And meditation definitely helped me with this, right? To be able to pause and to say, hey, maybe this situation is nothing like I think at all. Maybe I know nothing about it. And maybe
Right.
I can come with some curiosity to be like, I'm here with these people, and how can we take it to another level?
And I love, like you were saying, not being reactive. I remember being so young and it was all about like the gossip around the office, right? The water cooler talk. Who was doing what? How are
Yeah.
they doing it? And that was like the exciting part of my day, right? Like, what's going on? And now it's like, and it's funny because in my children are both adults. They're both in college. And I'm always like, why are you one feeling this way, right? What is it
Yes.
about yourself that you're taking from this individual that's making you that upset? Like,
Yeah.
it's about, you don't have to react, right? You don't have to be in that position to be, but that came later, right? And I think that's one thing, if I could tell women, like, just try to take a step back, try not to react, try to breathe, and
Yeah.
maybe come back to it the next day with a different mindset
Yeah.
than feeling attacked, and they may be attacked. I don't know what the situation is, but I agree with you. I love that you're like, how can I help? I'm not going to engage this behavior. I'm going to look at it differently.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah. And
step. That's huge.
yeah. So, and I too, I have a daughter in college, and it's been interesting too to see how she reacts and how
Yeah.
she handles certain problems. And sometimes all I need to say is like, who said she'll come to me with, oh, this person, that, and you can tell that she's being influenced
Right.
by, and maybe not even a literal perspective, her interpretation of a
Right.
situation, right? So I'll say, like, is that really what he said? Or is
Right.
that what you're thinking that he said? And it is fascinating to be able to hold that space for the next
Well, and
generation.
just asking that question. I think questions are, in the journey of figuring out who you are, it's about asking the questions, right? And really just giving a pause.
Yeah.
Just giving a pause. Just
Yeah.
being exactly what you said. And it's so great that you're able to have that ability to communicate that with your daughter. I think it's so great for all people in any situation, just to be like, is that really what we heard? Like,
Yeah.
really step outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's making the calls here?
Yeah.
Who's in charge of you, of me, right? Like
Mhm. Absolutely.
it's so fascinating. Yeah.
Mhm.
It took along, and I wish certainly that I had that perspective a long time ago, but it really wasn't necessarily around for me.
Mhm.
I didn't have, uh, a support system that kind of understood that or could communicate it. Everybody was just too
Me
busy.
neither. I didn't. I mean, it's funny because the whole thing with this, I've grown up reading all these self-help books, right? And
Yeah.
I thought that's where and I'm reading like Eckhart Tolle. I'm reading all these amazing brains and spirituality. And it wasn't until 5 years ago I met a whole group of women in Denver, because that's where I originally I lived there, and I just recently moved to Georgia. And these women were reading the same thing. And then they're like, oh, it's spiritual. And I was like, oh,
Right.
I didn't know I was spiritual. I didn't know that's what we were calling it these days. Like, if we're going to put a box around it, right? But the perspective has changed, and the practice has changed, and the enlightenment has changed, and I mean, all of those things have changed. And I agree with you. The one thing I am happy is that we can at least change the conversation. We can start seeing things differently. We can talk about work. We can talk about family. We can talk about blending both of them. And we can also empower other women. We can empower other men to start feeling like it's okay to be in this space, to feel safe, and to be who you need to be.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we can now, bring into the conversation these days being authentic,
Me too. Me
right?
too. Because you can read it on people. The
Yes.
people you meet, you can feel it through. It was funny because the one thing I do miss is interaction. COVID has been a
Mm,
horrible thing that we've all had experience. And now we're doing 40 Zoom calls a week, right? And,
yeah.
and I miss the interaction, and I'm waiting for the day for it to come back. It's the one thing I do miss. But you can feel it through a conversation with people on the phone, on a Zoom. There's just something in their voice. There's just something in the way that they're having their conversation with you.
Yeah, totally agreed. I was on a call just the other day talking about the situation, because of the global pandemic.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I think also, and maybe because of the pandemic, that social media and doing a virtual connection has become such a thing that I too, maybe because of a meditation practice or leadership growth or a spiritual practice,
Mhm.
have been able to bring a whole different connection to that. Because when I sit down on LinkedIn to do a connection and I am doing it and I'm looking at somebody's picture as if I'm looking literally into their eyes.
Right.
So I'm coming from that space, and I don't know that I could, necessarily have done it with the same quality had I not been doing some kind of meditation or peace practice.
Agreed. I think the other thing about connections on Zoom is I've met more people internationally than I ever have in my life.
No, isn't
And I
that
think
cool?
that's so cool, because there is a difference between how we work in the United States to how you work in Ireland or Netherlands, and it's interesting to hear about their culture and their communities and
Yes.
their thinking.
Yeah,
Um,
and right.
it's slower. I mean, it depending on, when I talk about I have on my Offsite Dirt channel, my media channel for
I love
construction.
that.
I've talked to Carl, and he is from Netherlands, and it's so interesting because he's all about solution-based to creating housing for his community. And it's so important. He's so passionate about it. And he wants to bring it to the US. Like his whole goal is to bringing it to the US, where I'm like, well, I want to get over it.
Don't leave us out of the Netherlands.
Good field trip.
Right.
So it is interesting. And I mean, there are some great things to Zoom, because I wouldn't have met you if I wouldn't have, been able to engage. And I do believe, spirituality, peace practice, it's all just a practice. And if you're into practice about professional growth or professional leadership, one of the things that I like to do every year is I do a vision board, right? And it's for my personal and my professional. The other thing I also do is every year I pick one area in my life that I want to empower myself. So last year I took a course online. It was called $1 Million Year. And it was all about women being empowered about their finances.
Oh, yeah.
And their growth in that space. And my goodness, I have to tell you, that was meeting the women in this collective, the Facebook group. We're talking to 100 women at a time. And it's so cool how women were like, good for you. You paid off that credit card. Good for you. Like, just the support system was amazing. If you learn nothing else, to feel supported in just that space of your financing was worth all the money in the world.
Oh, yeah. And especially, on finances, so we talk about how, technology has really allowed, and even some unfortunateness, even with the global pandemic, we're at a point in time now where just life is so different, but, back in the day, like in the 70s, women still had to get a cosigner, their husband to cosign just to open a checking account in the 70s.
I know, it's crazy. And we're still carrying on those same assets now, where, we may feel like we need to have permission with our husband and say, instead of saying, hey, we're in this together, let's discuss this together.
Yeah.
And figure out the solution. Where, I mean, I have women that I live with that have to ask their husband permission to use their money. So, I mean, it's all expansion. It's all growth. I feel like it's all good. It just makes me happy to see as how we're empowering and supporting each other. I think that's the one thing when you being an engineer, me being in construction, I really do try to go the extra mile to help more women, to feel more empowered, to feel more heard, to feel more connected. We need more of us.
Yes.
Because it just allows it just allows a different business process. It allows more inclusivity, and it allows more opportunity to hear something from another perspective. And that helps us grow and expand our businesses.
Yeah. So, so what I'm hearing you say is that life is at a point right now where there is sisterhood.
There is.
That you probably don't know of. And all you need to do is explore a little bit, and you're going to find these support networks, and you're going to get whatever you need, and that you're largely needed. So for me, one of my biggest heartbreaks was, when I first entered the engineering world, like a little over 30 years ago. And that was a transition where in college, in my sorority, there wasn't a lot, but in a concentrated place, my sorority was full of engineers, computer science majors, accountants, math majors. So I was a bit protected and inspired and informed that, listen, women can do anything. But then I transitioned into the real world, into the work world, and they weren't there initially. But in my heart, I felt I need to represent and be there to show others so others can follow.
Agreed.
And then at a time in between, there seemed to be a drop off, and women were really kind of being driven away. But what I'd love to just communicate to everyone is that I think it was just a big life hack.
Yeah. Everything grows and expands, right? I mean,
grows and expands.
It's where we are now.
And it was just really an opportunity for women to be empowered, to show up to those things, and to say, hey, I'm going to do this regardless of what anybody else says.
And also to feel it's okay to have their families and their life. Like we were talking yesterday about, I had a client that ran late because they had to pick up their son from school. They finally went back to school and they were so like, we're so sorry. But I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, let's stop the judgment about taking care of our families. We are parents today, the amount of like working from home, helping their children, get online, taking them here, taking them there. Like, let's give a little grace, right? Let's give a little offering of love and connection, because we all went through it. If you know, and a family, even if you or your family is a dog member, like you have to go take your furry friend outside, and that's important for you to be at the dog park with them. It's all about allowing us to have these moments, because this is where we're at today. In those moments, and bringing our family, you know, getting them from school and bringing them home and having that connection allows us to be better at our professional life as well, because we're not as stressed. We're trying to stay more connected. We're trying to be our authentic self. We're trying to give space to knowing that life is important, and those around you, connected to you, however they are just as important. And we have to start respecting that and giving people space to knowing it's okay.
That is so, so beautiful. And I tell you what, it's so beautiful. I'm going to start to bring the episode to a close, because I think that is by far one of the most important reasons why more women do need to be in these spaces, is to bring that perspective to the world. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Audree. So in closing, we do have a quote from Rebecca Campbell for inspiration: "Rise, sister, rise." So Audree, let us know how to get in touch with you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for this conversation. I hope that there's more women, more men, more people that feel empowered to be themselves. My company is Modular SureSite. You can always check me out, modularsuresite.com. If you're wanting to learn about construction, you can go to offsitedirt.com and learn more about the offsite world, and hopefully feel like you've got a new understanding of how we can build and support each other. So thank you for allowing me to do coffee with you this morning. It was beautiful.
It has been a pleasure, and honored and privileged to have you on the show. I will certainly share the links to get in contact with Audree in the show notes. Coffee Time with Kauffman is the comfortable place to discuss women's leadership, because I am on a mission to help the world to discover the truth about what women are capable of. When you are ready for your leadership mastery makeover, go to mariakaufman.com and click on Consult a Coach, where you can schedule time with me for an empowerment session. Have a great week. Enjoy your adventures and journey responsibly. Thanks.
Thank you.